In this video, we're going to talk about what NHR is. Is it really tax-free, or what is the deal with it?
We managed to get access to a Portuguese payslip. Shh. So NHR stands for non-habitual residents. It's a 10-year tax incentive for non-residents of Portugal.
And how that is defined is that you can't have lived in Portugal for the prior 5 tax years of you being here. So if you are Portuguese but you lived abroad, you also qualify under this, under certain professions.
Now we get a lot of questions about the NHR scheme and how people might be able to benefit from it. And one of the key things that we get asked and we see online is people want to move to Portugal and some want to apply for a job. And the question we get is, if I get a job in Portugal, does that mean if I'm under the NHR scheme that I have 0 taxes?
Absolutely not. So what people think is 2 things. Some people think that NHR is a visa. It's absolutely not. You still need, if you're not from the EU or if you're not Portuguese, you still need a visa to be in the country. So you still need to think about the residence and be allowed to work and stuff like that. It's just a tax incentive. Furthermore, it's not like Dubai. There is actually taxes here. And it's only a very small amount of difference of incomes that are tax-free under the NHR. So if you're coming here for a job, you have to bear in mind if you actually want an NHR. So if you're coming here and working maybe a seasonal job or something like that, so your income isn't very high when you're in Portugal, you have to consider if it's cheaper for you to just pay normal Portuguese taxes than paying NHR, because the tax rate in Portugal starts from 14%. So bear that in mind when you are making your decisions whether you are going for NHR or not. What else is important is that not everybody can get NHR. So it's important that you haven't been in the Portuguese tax system for the prior 5 tax years. That's the condition number 1. Condition number 2 is that there's only certain professions. So you can't go here regardless. You have to check the list of professions, and that is being updated as well. So I'm not going to list them all here, but there's like 40 to 50 different types of roles that you can have, and then you can get that profession.
We'll include those professions down in the description box.
Why is NHR being called tax-free? So what it was first known for 10, 15 years ago when it was introduced was that a lot of pensioners came here and then they didn't have to pay any further tax on their pension. That has now changed, so that at least the majority of the people have to pay 10% tax. Remember, we're not giving tax advice here, we're just giving you the hints of it so you know where to look and what to look for and how to understand this. Because we're not tax professionals, so that's the disclaimer out there.
Never.
That's where I think the name is tax-free is coming from. So Portugal have a number of different ways of looking at income, where if you come here and get a job, that's where you pay the most amount of tax. That's because there you both pay 20% NHR tax and you then pay 11% social contributions. So that's the highest amount of tax that you then can end up paying in those 10 years. Depending on how your income is structured, let's say that you have investments, for example, that's like 27-28% on capital gains tax from that. So bear that in mind as well. If you have a company, for example, and you receive dividends, it's either low tax or no tax, or if it's taxed in another country, it can also be low. And that whole combination of it is where that misconception of that it's tax-free is coming from. So do remember, before you're coming here, plan out your taxes. So contact tax professionals, understand your full setup, understand how you're making money, how you're bringing in money to Portugal, what country that comes from, understand what rules are with tax professionals, and then you know exactly how much tax you're going to be paying in Portugal. We are linking a salary calculator below, so you can see what the traditional Portuguese salary would be taxed as an alternative to NHR, which you can bear in mind if you come here for a seasonal job, for example, then it might not be worth getting NHR, because the one thing you have to bear in mind is if you get NHR, you can't stop the clock on that. So that is 10 years. So if you come here for a year and then go out for 2 years and then come back for a year, then the clock on the 10 years is running, and you can't pause that even if you leave the country, and you can only get NHR once. So also bear that in mind, so you're using the tax incentive to your greatest benefit.
There are many people who are interested in getting a job in Portugal, and they want to know how much money they need to make on a monthly basis in order to afford a reasonable cost of living. And that's what makes this salary calculator and a tax calculator so imperative before you say yes and sign a contract and get a job, and then realise that perhaps it's not quite as affordable as you may have hoped for. So this process is a really important one to go through before signing on the dotted line.
That's why we always would recommend you trying to make a rough calculation of what taxes you would be paying on arrival, and try to put up a whole budget. Go through, for example, our renting video, go through Idealista, try to do all the predictable expenses and find out how much money are you going to be having after you've paid tax here, because the salaries and jobs in Portugal are not super high. So you need to bear that in mind, that because the rent is going crazy with different inflation, then the budget can be hard to put together at this time. So bear that in mind before you accept a job offer. Understand the full taxation picture and your full expense picture before moving here.
Now let's get into this payslip. So we've had a payslip donated to us, and we're going to take a look at it.
So let's take a look at when you actually have to receive a salary in a regular job in Portugal and you have NHR. So this is how a payslip could look like. So it's built up with a base salary and then maybe for example, a work from home allowance if that's the case. So you have the amount of ingoings here. But more important is that you have to look at, this is an NHR payslip, so you can see you pay 20% IRS tax, income tax, and then you pay 11% social security. And why do you think that this is high, which it in some degree is, or it might be cheaper than countries like Denmark, but on top of this, the company, your employer also have to pay 23% social security. So in total, even if you are an NHR, the employer and you have to pay 20 plus 11 plus 23 roughly. So that's around 34% plus the 20. So we're already over 50% in tax, depending on how exactly it's calculated. But it is quite high when you have NHR. It is quite high when you have a regular job. So it's not tax free as many people do say. So if we just have a quick look here, if you have NHR, you do get 20% tax, and that's a reduced tax rate for 10 years. After that, it's much higher, and it goes from, I think, 14 to 48%, if I remember correctly. Social contribution is, as I said, 11% that you have to pay, and 23.75% that the employers pay on your behalf. Most companies also give you a lunch allowance on a special lunch card that can be used in some restaurants and in some supermarkets. That's usually around €7 per working day to pay for your lunch and go straight to the card. And I don't think that is taxed as an employee. So what we do look away from here is that we don't look at things like holiday pay, we don't look at work from home allowances, which in some cases like this payslip we've borrowed here has. But those are the kind of things that you also have to consider if you do work from home, then negotiate that. And the total tax rate that you have to pay, so if you put the socials and the NHR together, so if you get a job, let's say you get a 40-50k job in Lisbon, and you do have NHR, then the first 10 years, the total tax you have to take from that amount is around 33%. And remember, as soon as that is over, then you pay traditional high Portuguese tax.
I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching. If you found it helpful, press the like button, please subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.